Rev up your engines!
Well, here we go with Tesla and their self-driving cars. The National Transportation Safety Board is putting the brakes on their planned full self-driving rollout. They're talking about their autopilot now, and then Tesla's trying to make it even so it can drive itself, right? They're saying, hey, your autopilot doesn't even work, which of course is true. And some of it is branding. Yes, it is misleading. Autopilot, it can't drive itself, as the government says. Tesla is aware that neither autopilot or FSD offer truly autonomous driving capabilities, despite the name. I agree, how can you brand something says that it is, but it isn't? It's a flying car. It doesn't really fly, but, it's a flying car. Same thing. It can't really drive itself. So for once, I agree with the government on this one. The name itself is misleading. Driving assist is what they should call it. Not fully autonomous. It should be called driving assist. It can assist you. But keep your hands on the wheels and keep your eyes open, too. Don't get drunk like that one woman. Car crashed and it kept driving itself along till the police pulled a car in front of it and then it stopped itself. So maybe a change of name is due here, too. If you want one of those fire-prone Chevy electric cars, the Bolts, next month, GM's going to start offering the replacement of the battery. So don't plug it in your garage anytime soon. And they're going to begin to replace some of the battery cells in some of the Bolts. So believe you me, it's going to be a long time before they replace them all. They had a recall where they said it's the module, but then some of the cars that they replaced the module on, they still went on fire and burned stuff down. So, not the most trustworthy people on the planet here. Now they're telling people to drive until you have 70 miles of range left in the car. They don't have that much range to begin with. Basically, they're selling you a relatively useless car that might start on fire. And they're talking about how GM is going to lead the world with electric cars. I wouldn't bet the farm on that one. Now, these batteries are LG batteries. They're Korean batteries, right? And who are they going to for the replacements? LG batteries. Remember the Takata airbags? Originally, they replaced the Takata airbags with other Takata airbags. Then they had to recall the other Takata airbags. Let's see how this all plays out over time. And all the hype about electric cars, when the rubber hits the roads, there's a lot of crap still going on with them. They haven't ironed most of the bugs out at all. Like I say, you can buy an electric car. My advice, wait a while and see how the chips fall. When they've been around for years, you see which ones are junk, which ones stand up. It just doesn't make sense to go out and buy one now. I'll tell you one thing though, if you do want to buy one, buy a used one. Their resale values are nothing. I've seen them go for 10, 15 cents on the dollar when they're 5, 6 years old. It kind of tells you something right there. Happy Joe probably isn't all that happy now, says I got an '07 Ford Focus, no power, but power in the battery. Ran perfect a week ago. You have tested the battery, it has voltage, but the car has no power. You turn the key, nothing happens. It's a very common thing with Fords. They don't build the battery terminals and the battery cables all that well. And as they age, they short out internally. You put a test meter on a positive and negative battery terminal themselves, and you got power, but you're not getting power to the ignition switch. My advice is, if you want a cheap fix, go to an auto parts store and buy just those lead battery terminals with the bolts. Cut your cables off of the car where those terminals are and splice in those new ones. You'll probably find it'll start right up because they short internally. It's just a problem. Ford has bad quality control on those things, and they just don't send any power out. That's what it is 99% of the time. Sometimes the battery terminal is just loose and stuff, but on those, they weren't made that good. And if you cut them off and splice new ones on, and then the other end where you put the wire in, they just bolt down with two little 11mm screws. It's a very simple thing to fix. That, in most cases, will fix the entire problem. If you got power at the battery, it's not making it through because those short out internally. It's a problem with Fords. Irish J says, I got a check engine light on, but there's no codes. I'm looking at a 2008 Toyota Avalon. The check engine light's on, but there are no codes. And the scanner thinks something is wrong. My advice, I wouldn't touch that car with a 10-foot pole. Toyotas rarely have computer wiring problems. They have very little problem. If your light's on and there aren't any codes, you got a serious problem. Either the computer's gone bad, the wiring's gone bad, or some sensors have gone bad. Any three of those will do that, and you won't get any codes. But the main thing is, if you got a check engine light on in a Toyota and you can't get codes out of it, it's usually a problem in the computer. Now, computers themselves rarely break on Toyotas, but it's an '08. You don't know the history. If it was wrecked or flooded, all bets out the window then. You can't blame Toyota. If a computer gets underwater and shorts out, that's not Toyota's problem. That's because it was flooded out. Diagnosing that can be a hellacious job. You're looking to buy it, don't buy it. Walk away. Find another one. Any car, you get a check engine light on, you put a scan tool and it doesn't read, and you're thinking about buying it, don't buy it. Now, if you already own the car and it runs okay, what the heck? Drive it. Who cares? You know, if it's an older car and it still runs, you don't care. You're looking to buy one, run away from it. There's too many possibilities. The main one is it might have been flooded out, and you don't want to buy a flooded out car. Leandro in 1971 says, does my 2018 Nissan Frontier 2.5 liter heavy transmission cooler? I'm worried about the automatic transmission. I want to make it last. Yes, you know, they all have coolers, and almost every car, except for the really expensive made one that have extra ones, it's just part of the radiator. You'll see your radiators, plastic radiator, plastic aluminum body, plastic bottom. And on the bottom, you should see two hoses going in. Those are the transmission lines. The cooler is built into the radiator. So the hot transmission fluid goes through the bottom of the radiator, and then the radiator dissipates the extra heat. So don't worry, they make them. If it's an automatic transmission, yes, it has a cooler. If it's a standard, no, they don't bother. But most people drive automatics. I'm sure you got an automatic because you said you're worried about your automatic transmission. So, yeah, it's just built into the radiator. It's good enough. I wouldn't worry about it. P. Barada says, I got 2008 Land Rover. It won't start. It's got 214,000 miles. I put the fob in. The green light comes on. No dash lights come on. I press the start button. Dash warning lights come on, but vehicle does not start. Put on new battery. No change. It is a Land Rover. You got 214,000 miles. I'm surprised it still runs at all. Well, it doesn't run now. Pray it's simple. The light's coming on, you push the button, the idiot lights, but there's no start. Pray it's just a bad starter. It's often a bad starter with 214,000 miles. Just on one of those isn't just. Those things cost a fortune because it's a Land Rover. What you want to do is watch my video, how to replace a starter on your car, Scotty. Watch that. Let's say you got somebody in there pushing the button. Get a big hammer. When I got the button pushed, whack the starter. And if you whack it and it starts to turn over, then you know the starter's gone bad because that shows the starter's trying now and it's just shot. Pray it'll do that and you just need a starter because it is a Land Rover. And realize all that stuff, those buttons, they ultimately go to a computer system to decide whether to start the car or not. There's no direct connection between pushing that button and the starter. It isn't like there's electricity coming from the battery to the starter button to the starter. No, it's all done by computers and relays. So pray it's just a bad starter. Watch that video. Let's hope it is just your starter. With that mileage, it probably is. B says, my oil light comes on and it flashes when the air conditioner is on. On a 2019 Kia, you turn the AC on, it does two things. It's going to affect the idle of your car because it strains the engine, but it's also going to stress the electrical system of the car. If it only comes when you turn the AC on, here's a trick. Put it in drive with the AC off, try going real fast and then slowing down fast to stop. If the oil light never comes on then, it's going to idle lower. It's probably an electrical failure. That extra strain is going to make the engine idle too low. If it idles too low, you're going to lose oil pressure. But if it doesn't, only when you turn the AC on, it's showing it's more of an electrical problem. Have your battery and alternator load tested. They could be weak. And then when you stop, turn the AC on, that drains a lot of electricity and that can start flashing because it's not an actual failure of oil pressure. It's a failure of electricity. If you hear your engine clanging when the oil light's flashing, yeah, you got a serious problem. But if that oil light is flashing on and off, and your engine, when it's idling, isn't going clangety, clangety, clang, the oil pressure's still working. It's that you got an electrical failure, and a lot of times it's just a weak battery or a weak alternator causing the same thing. Very common. Well, if you think the human race isn't adaptable, you don't know anything. Toyota is now letting farmers in Brazil to pay for their new trucks, that of course they used to make the corn and soybeans. They can pay for it using corn and soybeans to pay directly for the vehicles as a bartering method. You can imagine. It's hard enough for American farmers to get cash. Imagine how bad it is in Brazil. Toyota in Brazil says, you don't have any cash? Just bring us your crops. So in Brazil, Toyota is now accepting corn or soybeans in place of physical or digital currency. It's a program called Toyota Barter. And they've been doing it since 2019. And they're going even further. The farmer brings the crop to Toyota, and a third-party firm that's called Nova Agri ensures they were farmed sustainably. Then they get their vehicle in trade for the grain. Now, I'm sure it's an awful lot of grain. We're not talking about, 3 baskets. We're talking tons, right? Toyota found out in Brazil that 16% of its direct sales come from the agriculture industry, so they're giving these guys a break. So, like I say, the human race is very adaptable. If one system doesn't work, somebody will come up with another one. Uber worked for a while. Maybe it's past its prime and something else will take over. Or there'll be various other competing systems going out, and the one that works the best will be the one that succeeds. Toyota showed themselves pretty smart in this one. They're using their noggins on that. They've got various ideas of what will work and what won't. They've been doing this since 2019, so obviously it's working out pretty good for them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.